right, well, good morning, thank you. Thanks for coming. I missed you last month while I was on jury duty, so it's good to see everybody. So start our New Year's together. We're very fortunate and thankful this morning for Fire Chief Beardsley, who has come out in the cold with all sorts of interesting things to share and good information about winter safety and and safety in general. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm glad it wasn't last week when we were originally scheduled, because then we wouldn't have been here. So, and next month, Lou Mamoletti, who is our new general manager for the water department, will be our guest speaker. So, and we'll figure out something to eat. So, thank you. Thanks for coming. I'm going to turn it to the chief and get, if anybody needs any more coffee, we've got more coffee or more to eat, and I'll.
Thank you. Colleen, I'd like to thank all you also for asking me to come in. I think Colleen asked me back in October.
I may have.
It was early, and then she must think I forget, because every time that I'd see her, she'd say, "Now remember, January." Just
That's right.
I even had to show her as I was putting it into my phone one day. See, it's right here.
Just ask Nick what that's like at home. With the kids.
Same thing.
Do you have it? Do you have the checklist?
All right. If you want to add, a little more misery to our cold, Key West, Florida, it's 70 degrees.
Oh.
Don't throw anything at me, please.
Would you like more?
Jacksonville, Florida, yesterday was 24 degrees on the Georgia.
Yeah, I see that frost they got and everything.
Yeah, I
Well,
can't believe it.
as I was saying to somebody earlier, my son-in-law, he's getting ready to muster out of the Army. He's up at Fort Drum, New York, which is like way up by the Alexandria Bay area. And he sent me a note yesterday. Tuesday they had 3 feet of snow, 3 feet. They were expecting 10 inches yesterday and another 3 inches today. So, there's always somebody that has it worse. Easy way to remember it.
They're going to be up in this place.
But what Colleen had asked me about, and she always kind of has me come in this time of the year, because this is the time of the year when lots of different safety issues come into the realm. And it spans all ages from little kids right up to the end. And the biggest thing is cold weather safety. We know, we've got tons of ice out there. How many of you have slipped on the ice in the past week or so?
A week.
Yeah. I had promised my wife, I have a sloping area on the side of my house, and we have chickens, and I got dogs, and my wife was going out to run some errands, and she said, look, she goes, be careful out there, it's icy. And so I just made reference that, look, if you find me out there frozen in the snow, you're going to be a rich widow. The house will be paid for, you'll be in good shape. I don't think she was gone 5 minutes. And I was trying to bring I have 4 dogs. I was trying to bring them into the house, and I slipped.
Fancy? Was it fancy?
No, I don't know. It was like a boom. It was like flat down, bang the back of my head, and I'm like laying there, and about 2 of my dogs came over. My boxer and one of my Great Danes came over. They were licking me on the floor. So it's like, this is not a way to die. Being licked to death by a dog. So. But
for animals actually this time of year as well, outside.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can't keep them outside.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you. I mean, I was aware of the ice.
Yeah.
And and the same thing happened yesterday. I'm trying to walk over to a safe area that is not quite so hilly and a little more snow than ice. And the little shovel I have to pick up the dog's droppings went in one direction, the rake went in the other, and I caught myself that time. So at least I know the joints are still flexible, because I don't ache today. I did ache after I whacked my head. That did kind of hurt. But that's the problem. And we get a little bit of a snowfall, and especially like what happened last week, where we had a meltdown. And of course, that meltdown just created such glass perfect. I mean, if I had been a kid and had my skates, I'd been in my driveway. I'd have just been in hog heaven. And the thing is, it starts to snow. That makes it even greasier. And there's just, the best advice, if you don't have to go out, don't. I know I came down here on late Friday morning, when the snow was breaking, and I could tell everybody, for the most part, must have been cabin bound because people wanted out. And I saw Deke and the guys, they were shoveling out cars and everything, and I saw quite a few of the folks down here trying to make their way to their cars to get them opened up. But again, if you can just hang in for a little bit while longer while things get cleared out, it's going to be safer for everybody. Later on Friday afternoon, we had a medical aid call for an elderly person, and nothing is cleaned out for us. Fortunately, our Explorer Scouts were out shoveling hydrants, and they were able to get in there as we're working on the patient in the house. These kids were great. They showed up, and boy, there was snow flying in every direction. It was like another snowstorm. They were moving so much snow, and it was great. But it's still, the surface was very slick on the boards. They were painted boards on the floor, on the deck, and very dangerous. Another problem that we run into, think about, now most of you guys live here, right? So you're pretty fortunate, in regards to carbon monoxide issues. Carbon monoxide is the odorless, tasteless, colorless gas that's given off by fossil fuel burning appliances. So if you have, propane heaters, fuel oil, natural gas, they all give off
Charcoal?
Charcoal's the worst. Yeah. There's been lots of deaths over the years from people trying to build a charcoal fire, in their house to cook food. Yep. But when was the last time, think about this, in your home, when was the last time you had the windows open? Yeah. Probably last October.
Week when it was 50s.
Yeah, the 50s. But the carbon monoxide, I mean, you folks are fortunate because of the way your heating system is set up here, you don't have to worry about that in your apartments here. But if you have a home, or a multifamily home or something where there is, fossil fuel burning equipment, there's always that risk. The other thing with carbon monoxide, and this is what a lot of people forget about, you get out there in your car, let's say like last Friday when people were, just trying to get out of their snowbound, cabins, they're sitting out there in the car with the engine running. And the snow gets, is just packed around the exhaust pipe and such. And believe it or not, there have been fatalities. In fact, there was 2 little kids that died last year in Boston. I think it was in Mattapan section, when the father put them in the car, thought he was doing the right thing, and this is the irony of it. Father thought he was doing the right thing, put the kids inside the car, keep them warm, keep them safe. Well, the car was so bound in by snow as he's trying to remove it, the carbon monoxide leaked in, and the 2 little tots passed away. And that's just how easily you can become overcome by carbon monoxide. And that's why, if you start your car up here and you're sitting in it kind of just waiting for it to warm up before you head out and such, think about if you've got, if the exhaust pipe is blocked in with snow and such, because carbon monoxide, it occurs, like I said, here it's an automobile. And let's face it, our automobiles are not airtight, so even if you have the windows rolled up, the chances of carbon monoxide getting sucked in are quite a lot. So just, the good rule of thumb is just kind of be aware of the surroundings. Understand that, when you start up a piece of equipment, snow blowers. There's another one. People that, have homes, the snow blowers in the garage, and what do? They start up the snow blower in the garage, and they let it run. And I can't tell you the number of times we've been called to homes during, usually after snowstorms, for the carbon monoxide alarm going off because they've had either the car running in the garage, snow blower running in the garage, or the one guy in a snowstorm that had his motorcycle running. And that got a lot of chuckles when we said, yeah, the motorcycle is running in the garage. It's like, it's snowing outside. He was a motorcycle enthusiast. He wanted to make sure that baby was running. But these simple little things that we do, we think we're doing the right thing, and not fully aware of what is going to be the impact a little bit further down. We even have to be concerned. We have big fans that we blow the smoke out of your house, and it's called positive pressure. And one of the things that we have to be concerned about when we start up that fan, one of them is gasoline powered. The vortex of air that it creates is so powerful, it actually winds up sometimes sucking the exhaust back in. So we have to make sure we keep a firefighter, with an air pack on inside the house with a meter that will read how high the carbon monoxide is. And I mean, it's funny because we had a small kitchen fire down on East Street a couple of years ago, and so the decision was made, get the positive pressure fans set up so we can exhaust the smoke out of the house much faster. And next thing I know, I hear the lieutenant calling me on the radio, and he says, I have readings, like 100 parts per million, in the second floor. How the heck did that happen? And we realized everything was just getting pulled right back in. So use an electric fan the next time. But that's a little bit about carbon monoxide. That's one of the biggest problems that we have. Our state fire marshal Steve Cohen has put out lots of advisories on that. And if you have an apartment or a private home, you probably should have a battery operated carbon monoxide detector in your residence. We recommend, from a safety standpoint, if you have a furnace, there should be one about 10 feet outside of a furnace room, and then one in the sleeping area, and maybe one even at the top of the steps. And they're pretty easy. The ones they have out there in the market, I see them at CVS, I see them at the grocery store. Just plug right in, and they work great. The only thing is, like smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, they do have a life. And what we're seeing, the first generation of carbon monoxide detectors, there were estimates that they should last for about 10 years. And it's something. What we have found is that the carbon monoxide detectors are really averaging about 7 years. And that's, no matter how good you are at keeping your place clean and vacuuming and all that kind of stuff, it's electronics.
Does carbon monoxide drop or does it rise? Is it
Carbon
higher or
monoxide
lower?
will stay low.
So you put the detector down low,
Yeah, it'll stay low.
and you put the detector there too. So.
Yeah, that's why you see them. They plug right into your regular wall outlet.
Okay.
I mean, some of them, like in my house, I had my heating system died on me a couple of years ago. And they put it up kind of high, like where the clock is right there. They put it up there in the hallway going down to my bedrooms. So that's a good spot because it starts to fill it up. But yeah, the electric ones that just plug right in and they're great. Yes, sir.
Battery powered ones are still pretty good, aren't they?
What's that?
The battery powered ones, they're also good. Are they as good as the plug-in ones, battery powered ones?
They're plug-in. Well, they're plug-in ones that I've seen that also have battery backup. Those are really probably the best recommended because, fortunately, in Georgetown we're very, very lucky. Our municipal light does a really good job of keeping the power up and running. But if you're like me and you live over the border and you have National Grid, not so lucky. But having the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors with a battery backup is, that's giving you coverage on all sides. Because like in my house, I went out a number of years ago and I bought a generator, and we can run the generator when we have long power outages. But of course, what's the generator powered by? Gasoline. Gasoline runs, it's producing carbon monoxide. So the carbon monoxide detectors become extremely valuable in those cases, where they have the battery backup. So that's a little bit about carbon monoxide safety. Yes, sir.
Is there any symptoms with carbon monoxide, like headaches, dizziness?
Yep. Good question. Symptoms, signs and symptoms. If you start experiencing flu-like symptoms, that can be a headache. And I've had carbon monoxide poisoning. I know what it's like. I had it pretty bad. It was like a raging headache. I mean, I just felt like the top of my head was going to blow apart. That's one of the early signs. Some
Did you
nausea.
know that when it happened?
Pardon me?
Did you know it then when it happened?
Nope.
Oh.
And, and of all places, it happened in the fire station I was working in. It was the winter time, and we started up the engine, and we had the doors open, but it wasn't enough to vent. And this was an old 58 Mac, Mac B gasoline engine, and although it was reliable and it was a workhorse, it still produced a ton of carbon. And this was before carbon monoxide poisoning really became up to the forefront like it has been the past few years. I mean, this is back like in the late 1970s that this happened. So now we're a little bit more aware of it. We understand it, but nausea, the headache, dizziness, and when it really, really starts to get advanced, your skin actually kind of turns this funny grayish color. I mean, that's when, in most cases, you're about that close to being unconscious. And you'll see, the lips on victims will actually be purple, because what happens is there's a chemical reaction that occurs because the carbon monoxide binds to the blood, and so the blood can't cleanse itself, readily, and then that's where you get this kind of purplish color on the skin.
If you're sleeping at night, for instance, and you're sound asleep, you're not gonna be aware of this,
Sleep good
and they
that
find you in the morning.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, you don't wake up. Yeah, and that's, I just keep going back to that gentleman, in Boston last year with his 2 kids. Here you think the kids are, just napping and.
What does the detector do when it smells carbon monoxide? Does it ring or?
It'll beep. It'll sound. In fact, when we get the call, we had one yesterday around lunchtime, and it sounds just like most of them sound just like a regular smoke detector. They got the high pitch beep 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 beep. Now, the difference with a detector that's going off for an alert, and this is the same whether it's a smoke detector, battery operated smoke detector, or a battery operated carbon monoxide detector, is that there usually is a chirp. You'll hear a beep, chirp sound like that. And then maybe 30 seconds later, it'll chirp again. Most of the time, that represents some kind of a failure with the unit, which is, in most cases, the battery,
battery
is pooping out and just needs to be replaced. But as we always tell people, I would rather respond to 100 chirping smoke detectors or CO detectors, bring our meters in there, and make sure that you're safe, than to have somebody say, oh, it's just that, I'll get a battery tomorrow, and to have it really be a problem. But as I mentioned earlier with the smoke detectors on the ages, they originally, the code right now says that your smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, should be replaced every 10 years. What we have been finding is that right about the 7-year mark, a lot of these carbon monoxide detectors are failing. And they're just where they're chirping. You put a new battery in and they continue to chirp. So, just
Thanks, Al. I'll be right
fortunately,
back.
they're not a major expense, for the most part, and they're easily replaced.
With everything made in China these days, how can you be sure that even if you see a code on there, that they even do it?
What do you mean?
I mean, if you buy something that's made in China and you get a safety code, how do you know they didn't put that on there but forget the safety parts?
Good question, because we've seen that happening with some of the paint products coming out of Asia.
Plaster, sure.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that we have right now, with the electronics, they're supposed to go through a testing, and it's like anything, it's a random test. They may take a lot, a whole bunch more go through, grab another lot, and they do their testing. That's about the best that you can say. You can test them. There is a test switch on them. You can give that a shot once a month just to make sure that it is going off into steady beep. And some of them have a numerical a little digit on there that will, you know, give like a little reading that'll tell you whether it's a code number. They might see the number 1 come up, and number 1 may mean an alert for a fire or for a carbon monoxide overload. You know, 2 or 3. I've seen the number 3 on some models, and that indicates that the battery needs to be replaced. So, and you know something, as I, again, just to reemphasize the point, I would rather us come down, you know, in that kind of a weird case like that, I'd rather us come down, have our guys check it, myself check it, and now you know for certain that it's okay. If you don't think it's working right, let us know. We come down, take a look at it. We enjoy it. That's what our job is to do, is to make sure that you're going to be safe. Easiest thing. So that's a little bit about carbon monoxide. The other wintertime, you know, issues that we run into have been these pellet stoves. Now, any of you have pellet stoves? None, right? Nobody? Pellet stoves are, I don't want to say it. They're both good, but they also present problems. We've had at least 3 fires here in town where they've been related back to improper pellet stove, either installation or disposal of the products. In fact, in a very brief window of a couple of months, we had 2 serious fires where people had taken the ash out of the pellet stove, put it into a plastic bag, you know, and this is this. You know, here's the spiral of events.
Whoa.
Now, to their defense, I guess you could say, in both cases, the guys had said to me it was at least 12 hours from the time that the unit was off until they emptied out the ash. But what happens is, you know, I don't know how familiar that you are with the pellet stoves, but when they burn, they'll just bring down a small pile of ash. You know, there's very little residue. But what happens is the ash acts like an insulating blanket. So you might have, you know, one hot ember from a partially burned pellet within that, and now you throw it into a plastic bag, and as it continues to generate heat, and now it gets a little bit more oxygen in there, you know, it starts to come to life. Down at the corner of North Street, right opposite Pearly School, we had a fire this time of the year, about 2 years ago, I think it was, 2 or 3 years ago. 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. And boy, I'll tell you, when I turned the corner and I saw a wall of flame coming up, you know, from consuming up into the second floor of this guy's barn that's attached to his house, and it was all because of that. We had another one over on, where was it? I'm trying to remember what street it is. Off Pillsbury Lane, and yeah, I think it was Pillsbury Lane area. Right before that, a couple of months before that. Again, fire hadn't been going. It was at least, he feels, 12 hours from, you know, the time that they last saw it till the time he took out the ash, and it was probably another 4 or 5 hours. He's putting the kids to bed on a Sunday evening, and the smoke detector started going off in the house. He said there was nothing upstairs. He goes downstairs, nothing, goes down into the basement that leads out into the garage, and he said that's when he was met with a wall of smoke.
Yeah.
In that case, they were very, very, very fortunate. Early discovery, smoke detectors did what they needed to do. The North Street fire, had it not been for somebody driving by, unknown person, pulled into the driveway, he's blowing the horn. The people across the street were watching TV late on a Saturday night. Watching TV, they said, what the heck is with this guy, you know, blowing the horn outside? They look out the window and they see the fire. So, you know, these stoves are great, but again, you know, people just need to take some basic safety precautions.
Why do people put it in plastic?
I know.
Yeah, I can't believe
They
that.
think it's safe.
They don't
think
think.
that the fire, right?
They don't think.
The fire's been out for all these hours. It's safe. I can put it out there now.
I always had a metal pail to put it in.
Exactly.
That's it.
Home Depot, Lowe's,
Metal bucket.
Georgetown Building Supply, you get, they actually have what's called an ash can. It's like a double line type can,
Yeah.
and throw the stuff in there. Don't throw garbage in there, but use it strictly for ash. That's
What is the pellet composed of, the pellets themselves?
It's ground up wood,
Wood?
basically, and they put some other stuff in there to get it to bind together.
Yeah.
And it's all of the basically what would be the unused products that we normally can't use in construction, that would get ground up anyway and tossed out. So, yeah. Now the other thing too is in about the past 20, 25 years, all of your furnace equipment, your fossil fuel burning, whether it's gas, oil, and even with wood burning stoves, they've now come out with these things called power venting. Have you seen them? Ever heard of them? So all it is there's a device. If you drive past a house, and maybe roughly about this high, usually about 3 feet off the ground, you'll see a metal rectangular square on the side of the house. And what that is that's a metal covering that's part of the power venting system. And what happens is the furnaces now have become so efficient that they are, like in some cases, 100% efficient. And the problem that they run into is as oil burns, especially gas burns, there's moisture in the air that gets exhausted out through the chimney. You look out on a day like this, you'll see the white steam coming up out of the chimney, and that's just part of the unburned products from combustion, the moisture. Well, what's happened is the furnaces have become so efficient that unless you have a metal-lined chimney, and even in that case, I should say, even with the metal-lined chimneys, because the temperature coming off that stack, it used to be when you were kids growing up, if you went down and touched the chimney on your furnace, you get a burned hand. Remember that? Right? You never went near that chimney because it was hot and it would burn your hand. Now, you could put your hand on that pipe coming off. That pipe is not much more than about 85 degrees. It's burning that efficient, but it's still having to push out the moisture. And what they were finding was in the early 90s when these high efficiency units started to come out, the moisture that was being given off was so acidic that it was taking even metal lined jacket and it was eating it away after a few years, creating, of course, the problem with the possibility of carbon monoxide going into the home and other issues. So what they've done is, if you ever take a look at it, if you ever go in somebody's house that has a fairly new heating system, you may see PVC pipe coming off the furnace. Normally, where you would have seen metal chimney, metal coming off it, it's now PVC pipe. And what that does is that goes down because the PVC pipe isn't affected by that acidic moisture. And it goes into this little vent that you see on the side of the house. It usually is about 18 by 18 inches. And there's a power vent. There's actually a fan that will kick in somewhere along the line. Sometimes the fans are back at the furnace. Some are further up at the exit point in the building. But what the fire marshal has been finding out from fire departments is you get these big snows like this, and people aren't clearing the snow away from the power vents. Power vents are doing their thing, trying to push the exhaust out of the building, but it's actually preventing it from going out. And you're getting carbon monoxide buildup in basements and such and throughout houses. So again, as people are watching this on cable TV, they need to think, when we get these snowstorms, make sure that those vents are kept clear.
Dryer vents, the same sort of thing, washer dryers.
Yep. Yep. I mean, fortunately, with a dryer, that's just dry, exhausted heat that's being blown out of there. But they need to be kept clear. That's that way you prevent the buildup from coming back into the house and having problems. In a snowstorm a number of, not that many years, about maybe 10 years ago, we were called for a carbon monoxide problem inside of the house. And it was somebody that had one of these power vents that were set up in a gas system, And what had happened was they thought they were doing the right thing by taking the kids' toys, you know, the sleds and like that, and putting it around the exhaust. Well, what the problem was, they did such a good job because they didn't want the snow, you know, to come packing in around the vent. Well, what happened was, there was no way for any of it to get out. They did such a good job of protecting, you know, they had this little womb like this around the exhaust, and all the gas was coming back in the house. And here we are, like near blizzard conditions, and we're trying to figure it out, and the snow had come down late on the toys and everything that they had out there, and it's like, because we're asking the resident, like, you know, do you know where it comes out of the house? And, you know, she pointed, and all we see is just a big mound of snow like this. We started digging through it, sure enough. As soon as we did that, everything was back to normal again. So the best meaning, you know, that people do for trying to keep themselves safe sometimes winds up backfiring on them. Again, it's just, sometimes you have to kind of think through to the next step. Is what I'm doing going to be the right thing, or do I just need to make sure I go out there with a broom and just kind of keep it opened up? Yes, sir.
If your chimney has tile in it, you still have to put the metal up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that clay tile, which normally was on the inside, you know, did the lining on the chimney. Probably the majority of the older homes in town still have clay liners that are in there. And one of the problems that we've had over the years, we've been, knock on wood, lucky this year so far, we haven't had many chimney fires, but people will burn wood that's maybe too green.
Yeah.
And there's a creosote, you know, liquid that's given off, and that lines the chimney, and then the next thing you know, boom. And what happens in the case of the clay liners will actually dry out over time. You know, just years and years, whatever moisture is in that tile gets pulled out from the heat of, you know, normal fires and such, and then the next thing you know, it starts to flake away. They get a creosote buildup, and it may make an avenue for the heat and the gases to go into the house and start a fire. Usually when you hear about serious chimney fires, that usually is the case. There's been some kind of a breach. It could even be in the metal jacket if that hasn't been maintained. But, you know, a lot of times in the clay liners, tile liners.
How expensive is that metal?
I really can't even tell you. I don't know.
I heard it's like $2.50 an inch.
Wow. For the metal liners?
Yeah, because it's got
Triple jacket, double jacket. Yeah, like I couldn't say I haven't done any in years myself, because I switched over a few years ago to, you know, the high efficiency, and so I got PVC pipe going out my sidewall now.
Is that why they always advertise nowadays, the best thing is solar heat? Wow. Good stuff, cheap. You don't get that much out of it.
Yeah, the solar heating, you know, they're coming out with fire codes, you know, related to the solar heat, because more and more people are you know, seeking alternate means of producing electricity. And all I know is, you know, what I've been reading so far is there's a whole different set of hazards that we run into, you know, with the solar panels. The biggest one being, you get weather like this, snow loading on the roof. And depending upon what the angled pitch is on your roof, and of course on how well it is angled to get the maximum amount of sun, you know, that's going to dictate how well they're going to perform. But, you know, you still might get ice and snow buildup, and that becomes a danger, you know, to us. Another problem that we've been running into has been on some of the commercial buildings. They have, you know, flat roofs, and on the flat roof they'll have their heating package up there. And we actually had a case in town here a couple of weeks ago where we got a report of smell of gas inside the building. But it would only be briefly. And they said it would be like when the package would turn on, they would get a momentary smell of natural gas. And they said, I've never had that before. And it turned out to be, there was something where the heat exchanger takes place that had gone afoul. And of course, as the owner of the building said to me about a week or two later, he said, it's costing me a lot of money to get it fixed, but, you know, it has to be done. You know, so, you know, there's for all of these things, they produce heat, they produce gas, and there's just associated issues that come along with them. And a lot of times, the upkeep is very critical, for keeping them in good shape. Like, people that might be watching that have gas or oil burners in their homes, they should make sure that annually get somebody, a professional, not a friend of a friend who one time worked for an oil company, but I mean people that are licensed, certified technicians to come in and tune up and clean up your heating system, because that is one of the best ways to prevent a problem. Now, none of us want the heat to go out on a day like this, or like it's been the past couple of weeks. You want your heating, when you turn that thermostat on, you want to hear that rumble, and you know it's working.
Fire extinguishers. How
Yes.
Some fire stations apparently will recharge or take care of, it depends probably on the size or the type of fire extinguisher you have, but how often need you check that and have it done?
There's a couple of different things. You have like your general purpose type extinguisher for the home that many of us have. They're about roughly about 2.5 pounds.
Yeah.
About yay round.
Yeah.
Most of them have a little dial, and the dial will have a green in the middle, and you'll see a red at either end, and that tells you the pressurization of the cylinder itself. And as I always tell people, if you see that needle going down into the low side, something's wrong someplace. Whether it has a leak, from just maybe improper building of the unit and it's got a slow leak in it, or maybe somebody, squeezed the trigger and released a little content and you didn't know about
If
it.
it's sitting there for 10 years and you haven't used it, it's in a closet or something of that type,
Yeah.
would it still do the same thing?
Again, that 10-year rule seems to be what we're seeing in the fire service for the fire code on these different items like that 10-year rule seems to be becoming like the norm, for everything.
Would I just discard it in that case, or simply go down to your local fire station and they can juice it up or whatever they have to do?
On the sealed units, it's actually cheaper to go out and buy a new one.
Okay.
Because on the sealed unit, like we have the much bigger ones, as you
Yeah.
might well imagine, and we have to get them what they call hydrostatically tested every 5 years. And that's, because of the size and the expense, I mean, those things cost us about $150 each. The smaller ones that you get, like at the hardware store and such, they're probably somewhere around $15 to $20. So they're disposable basically. Now, if you have pressurized water, if you remember, those we have many of those pressurized water cans. They hold 2.5 gallons of water, and we actually use them and recharge them at a fire scene. We use them for grass fires a lot, because you put the 2.5 gallons of water in there, there's a little valve, and you only fill it up to a certain point on the inside. There's a little valve on the outside, and all you need to do is have it hooked into an air source, plug it into there, and watch the needle go up to the recharge point, and that extinguisher in a matter of minutes is ready to go back and fight fire. And 2.5 gallons of water at a brush fire with the right guy on that and the right guy on using a rake, you can cover a lot of area at a grass fire. And those are easily recharged. Like I said, we do that. We come back to the firehouse and we recharge them and they're ready to go back in service. But the sealed units, the dry chemicals and such, we have to send them out to get recharged.
Restaurant or something like that in the same situation there, and have them recharged?
Yep, they need to come in the commercial establishments. Now, we're charged by the state fire code. We are supposed to be getting in minimum of once a year into commercial facilities to inspect them. In fact, our fire inspection team is this week putting together all of the list for the year to try to get in, do our inspections on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday, do any follow-ups that we need to do. And a commercial business should have a fire extinguisher company coming in once a year. And they'd have a service tag. You ever see the tag hanging off them? And you just look at the service tag. You know, big thing we look at on the tag is if there's a dial that tells you the pressure, we look at the pressure. We look to see, has the service company come in, when were they in? So it would have to have been within the past 12 months. Because otherwise, you know, we'll gig them and, you know, give them a report that, hey, that needs to be, you know, brought up to date, either replaced or re-inspected.
Talking about water, do they still use the Indian pumps?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, I remember lugging them around.
5 gallons of love on your back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We reserve them for the young guys.
Yeah.
We let the young kids take those in. Give them 5 gallons of water, go off in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got the metal cans. We also now have the same company, Indian Pumps, that is in a like a canvas sack, like a rubberized canvas sack,
Yeah.
which actually is a lot more comfortable. But still, that is. You were in the fire department, weren't you? Weren't you? No, you weren't. Okay, I'm thinking you were.
They wouldn't have them.
But that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work lugging that around.
Especially when you get into the trees and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, usually that Indian pack is not enough to put it out.
How do you make out during the summer months when you have your woods fires and stuff like that? You guys have a lot of that activity taking place, grass fires and stuff?
Funny as it is, I mean, you know, we're still, you know, kind of rural in some places in town, especially like the north end of town. You've got a lot of big properties and such.
Yeah.
We're, knock on wood again, we've been very lucky over the years. Since my time as being the fire chief, we've had one big fire up off Thurlow Street that was about 30 acres. And the other really big one was this past spring. We had 6 acres over behind Pembroke School. And that, boy, if you can't understand like what an acre of ground is, boy, I'll tell you, 6 acres.
That's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot of walking. I got to that fire that day, and one of my deputies was running the fire. So that gave me the chance to kind of go out and do a little bit of intelligence gathering to see where we could get better access, because everything was on foot. And I remember being back in that area a number of years ago, and there being a trail that we could actually get vehicles into. Because everything we did, we had to cart in on our backs. And I had a kind of a makeshift map in my hands, my fire radio, and I'm walking and I'm looking at the markers that they have in the woods for the trails. And I must have been walking for a half an hour. I walked in a circle. I come back around and I'm like looking at the map and I'm
Been here before.
okay, I guess I didn't remember many of my good map reading skills from the Boy Scouts in the Army, I guess. But I wound up going in a circle, which was good because I wound up back where I started.
Yeah.
I know the driveway where I used to live is 41-acre yard. There used to be 100. That driveway is a fire lane. They said, don't
Yeah.
block the driveway.
Yeah.
And then go way out in the backyard, out to the apple orchard.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of fire lanes that are in town. You go up on like Baldpate Road and such. There's a lot of fire lanes there. There's a couple off East Main that give us access. But you know, it never fails. Your access road and where your fire is are usually like way apart. Never convenient.
How were these created anyway, this fire lane you're mentioning, to get at the fire, I assume, in the woods?
Get out
When
the
you
woods.
originally bought the property or something, was that something that was done, or?
I don't know where in time it all began, but several of these roads are actually part of DCR, Conservation and Recreation Department. They're the ones that have maintained them, and they've just been there as long as I can remember that they've been there. And they go up they'll go up at once the snow is pretty much off the ground. They'll probably like in March go up and clear out any debris that has fallen, and make sure that the path is open, because they need roughly about 12 feet to get their rigs up in there. We don't have the ability with our rigs right now. We don't have any small enough rigs other than like my vehicle, which is not a firefighting vehicle. But, everything else has to be brought in, pickup truck, ATVs, something like that. And a lot of times I'll call in DCR, which has the forestry guys, and they'll bring in their rig. And we also have, surrounding us, we have several towns that have all-terrain type vehicles that can, you know, they're more than happy to come up and give us a hand. So, anything else, fellas?
I can remember years ago in the 40s, when all this woods was burning,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
you had to go through Groveland, down to Route 1 to come back into town.
That was the time of the caveman.
Right.
The time of the caveman.
The dinosaurs were opening it up.
Yeah.
You're still here.
Well, again, I'd just like to thank you all for having me out here. I really enjoyed coming to see you guys. And I brought you some goodies here. Please feel free to grab a bag, and you got a nice plastic mug here from the fire department. And enjoy them in good health.
Very
Thank you so much.
Thank you.